David. How are you today?
Very good. How are you? I'm just admiring your background. You got a bit of Skyfall, you got a bit of Ed Norton, you got some Brad Pitt. Who's just below Brad? Who's that? I can't quite see.
That would be that's my album collection. I've got Brandy Carlisle here.
Good stuff. Love it. It's very cool.
Thank you. I try, and I have a skeleton somewhere here.
You have
So
a skeleton, and I just have a wooden wall, and for that I apologize.
I like your wooden wall. I think it's amazing. Dude, I'm a big fan of yours, and it's funny watching your career and watching where you've gone. You've gone to places a lot of actors would dream of going, Rogue One. Um, what what was it that led you to this particular story?
Well, you know what? It was I a few years ago. I'm going to say probably 20, I don't know, 2013 maybe, something like that. I was walking down Main Street in London, and I had about 2.5 hours between appointments, and I walked past the Curzon Cinema just in near Leicester Square in London, and there was a poster for a movie. It was a kind of an art house cinema, the Curzon. And there was a poster for a movie called Metro Manila. I knew nothing about it, nothing at all. But I thought this is one of those brief moments where I just thought I don't want to know anything. I'm just going to walk in and I'm going to watch this movie. And it's it's a Filipino heist movie. And at the end, the credits rolled. I think it was at the end, and it just said written and directed by Sean Ellis. And I was fascinated. I thought, how did that come about? So I did a little bit of deep diving and realized the story of how he got involved in telling that film. And then subsequently years, and I adored the movie. And then subsequently, I saw Anthropoid and loved that. Such a beautiful film with some phenomenal performances in it. And then a script arrived, and on it it just said written and to be directed by Sean Ellis. And of course, I thought I don't know whether it's kismet, I don't know what it is, but I thought basically I kind of knew I was going to do it without even reading it.
That's
So you kind of come up with a list of filmmakers that you hope for one day that you might get to work with, and Sean was on that list, and here we are.
I think that's an incredible story because you often hear, when you hear actors talk about, oh, I want to work with Spielberg. I love the fact that you have that passion for him. And honestly, it shows. This is a brilliant piece of work. This is
It's
a wonderful
I mean,
film.
it's Sean is it's if you look at his sort of list of credits on this film, he directed it, he wrote it, he was the camera operator, he was the director of photography, he probably did the props. I think one or two occasions he
Catering?
probably drove me to and from work. I don't know, but he's but from that you'd expect, you'd be terrified. The fact is you're going to walk into and work with a tyrant, an ego kind of crazy man, but actually he couldn't be far removed from that. He cares so passionately about the work that he's doing, but coupled with that, he's an enormously collaborative artist, really. And the fact that we shot this on film, and the fact that it's going to be shown in theaters, and so his kind of even story aside, but his visual work will be seen on exactly the right canvas is phenomenal, and that is one of the most exciting things. And huge kudos to Neon and LD Entertainment, who are the producers and distributors, to sort of commit to such a wide release with this film, to sort of celebrate its visuals, not least its visuals, is hugely satisfying and a privilege, no question.
Well, yeah, especially in today's market, it's hard to get anything that's, first of all, original
Yeah,
and not a remake, not part of some,
absolutely.
big thing. That's amazing. And the film itself is such a beautiful it's when I was talking thinking about what to ask you and what to talk about, it's almost hard to describe because you can't just say, "Oh, it's this type of movie."
Yeah,
There's something.
I think that's exactly right. I think at the heart of it, there's a human story being told. And I think that's really important. And audiences are so savvy. You know this better than anyone. Audiences are so smart. There's a huge amount of choice. We can turn on our TVs now and we can watch whatever we want to watch. And if it's not good enough, and if it doesn't speak to us in any way, then we'll just move on to something else.
Mhm.
So you can't hoodwink an audience in terms of an emotional engagement in a story. So you can tell a horror genre, but if it doesn't speak to an audience on a kind of an emotional level, then you're kind of lost, really. And you can appreciate a movie for its beauty and all the rest of it, but the endeavor has to be rooted in a human drama. And I think that's what we sort of tried to do, and try to sort of build from in telling the story that hopefully we've managed to tell successfully, I guess.
And you've created a character that is a very powerful character. He's a very interesting character. What was your what was the what? How did you find him?
Well, I when I first read him, I just didn't want him to be a sort of a tyrant, really. I wanted to understand. I mean, honestly, the root of it, I wanted to figure out the nature of the relationship that he has with Isabel, that the character that Kelly Riley plays. I was determined to sort of establish, or at least attempt to establish, the notion that this was a couple that fell in love when they were younger. They had children, born of love, and that they'd lost each other and they couldn't find their way back. I wanted to sort of also take on the mantle of a man that is he's the leader of a community. I mean, obviously the decisions that he takes are horrendous, but he takes that responsibility. You know, he's a man that has a responsibility on his shoulders. But he's fundamentally a human being. And of course, when you're telling a story like this, the decisions that he takes are to the extreme, because that's part of, you know, the storytelling. That's the narrative that we're telling. But if you were to sort of strip the extreme away, he's a man burdened with responsibility. And there's this great sort of culture that certainly in the United Kingdom, which is sort of inherited. I had in my head that in a way that the house in which they live and the land, obviously, you know, he's a vast landowner, but that comes down a familial line. And there's a tradition of that from, you know, centuries ago in the United Kingdom. And sometimes it goes to the person that is perhaps not best suited, but there's a responsibility to take it on. I think legally it's changed now, but the law used to be the eldest son, no matter what, takes on the responsibility of an inherited estate.
Oh,
I mean, look at our royal family, for example. The rules have just changed. Whereas now, you know, if you have a daughter who's the eldest child, they can take on the throne. It's that kind of thing. So I wanted to kind of try and at least find a man who felt the responsibility of the community which he had to lead out of circumstance, but not necessarily would have been his own personal choice. And then obviously the decisions he takes, as we discussed, are pretty horrendous. But so again, all of these things you hold internally, and hopefully it bleeds out at some point within the storytelling. But that's building, character building, I guess.
oh, you do. I mean, you and Kelly have a really it's a wonderful little relationship, and I think it absolutely shows. And you know, we have to wrap, but you are just a pleasure to talk to, my friend.
You're very kind. Thank you for taking the time to. And again, I'm still obsessing about your background. You've also got who's just tell me quickly, what's the one thing behind the skeleton? I can't quite read that.
Oh, that would be the original Halloween.
Oh, it is. Okay, it's the skeleton's hiding it, so I can't quite see it.
I know. Right? I gotta arrange that.
You really
Dude,
do.
I'd love to talk
Fantastic.
movies with you any day.
Magic. Brilliant. 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 It's a real pleasure to meet you. Thanks for your time.
Good meeting you, sir. Bye.